Filling out our number 5 slot, we've got Sirenhead's origins. So where did Sirenhead come from? Well, this towering monstrosity was created by Trevor Henderson, also known as @SlimySwampGhost. He tweeted out an image of the loud speakered Leviathan in 2018, and the rest is history. Henderson is a prolific monster maker and often draws terrifying creatures incorporated into digital photos to evoke a wickedly creepy response. Most of these beings come with a short, spooky story to give some context too. Make sure to check out more of Trevor's work if you're a fan of Sirenhead. Since the original tweet, Sirenhead's mythos has expanded greatly. Artists and enthusiasts everywhere scrambled to find out more about the lanky beast and made sure to provide their own interpretations. Soon enough, official details were released to the public. This is what we know so far. Sirenhead is approximately 40 feet tall, or about the size of a telephone pole. It's covered in what looks like rusted metal, but if you give it a closer look, you'll notice that it's actually dried, mummified skin. This lad needs some lotion. His skin is jerky to the point of looking like scrap metal. Extending out from his torso, Sirenhead's arms are as long as his body, with knuckles almost dragging along the ground. This gives an appearance similar to a gibbon. I can only imagine how far those reach in a chase scenario. Oh boy. There are wires that wrap around its abdomen and chest that writhe around when it's agitated. The iconic loudspeakers on its head are made of metal and therefore are the only metal on Sirenhead's body. They appear to be fused to its flesh and have been depicted as containing a nasty set of teeth and a long tongue. These sirens are able to rotate around, not unlike the head of an owl. There are many theories concerning where Sirenhead came from, but like all good cryptids, it's hard to explain just how it originated on our dear sweet planet Earth. Coming in at number 4, the sirens. So I mentioned the lovely speakers fused to the tip top of our flesh covered telephone pole before, and they aren't just for show. There have been reports of the megaphones pumping out odd music and sounds. No discernible pattern has been discovered, and it seems to play all sorts of different genres. These sounds and songs are often distorted and full of static. Imagine how creepy that would be, hiking through the woods in complete silence, and then all of a sudden you hear an old crackling jazz standard. Start dancing now, cause it might be the last chance you get. If Sirenhead is perturbed or senses prey, it will sometimes angrily shout random words and numbers. There's also a loud, shrill noise that might remind someone of an air raid siren. This has an extremely disquieting effect on anyone who hears it. When sleeping, Sirenhead produces constant white noise. It sounds almost peaceful. However, don't be drawn in by its less threatening noises. Just because it's asleep does not mean it's not dangerous. The last, most terrifying thing that Sirenhead will do with its speakers is imitate human speech. Why is that so terrifying? Well, I mean, anything inhuman that mimics us usually ends up at the bottom of the uncanny valley, and hearing human speech come out of something like Sirenhead is pretty uncomfortable. But there's a very specific reason why this copycat is bad news, and we're about to find out. Coming in at number 3, it hunts humans. What else would this malnourished monolith do? It was put on this earth to scare us and then eat us, the perfect creature. No one is quite sure how this process works though, as anyone who's been close enough to get devoured, well, got devoured. Those teeth are probably put to good use though. It's also unclear why Sirenhead consumes Homo sapiens, or if it even benefits from the process. Does it require human nutrients to live? Doesn't seem to be the case. Maybe it feeds on fear and then transplants our bodies to another time and space. Either way, you want to avoid this guy in the woods. Sirenhead usually snatches up hikers, campers, and other forest-dwelling folk, although it's not uncommon for people who live in communities near forests to go missing too. He's always around wooded areas. Being as tall and skinny as a telephone pole means Sirenhead can blend in well with trees. It can also stay perfectly still for long periods of time, which is great for camouflage. All of this makes it seem like Sirenhead is already adept at hunting humans, but like I was saying before, it can also imitate human speech. Often it will mimic the voice of a loved one or a person in distress to lure in victims. Aggressive mimicry at its finest. This makes it an extremely dangerous predator, because anyone who doesn't know any better will follow these sounds to their source. Unfortunately, instead of running into their mom or a hiker with a broken leg, they find themselves face to face with a 40-foot fiend. Although many people don't seem to mind that Sirenhead is a dangerous predator, fans will just say it's misunderstood. A friend you haven't met yet. Lots of people even made art and memes portraying Sirenhead as a wholesome forest neighbor, asking to borrow cups of sugar and playing cheerful music. And while this is a fun notion, maybe don't assume the best when you run into this spindly specter. At number 2, we've got scary video games. In addition to all the bone-chilling art featuring Siren Head, there are also a few video games featuring the Screecher in the dark. And why wouldn't they? Siren Head is a fantastic antagonist for a horror game. It makes for some fantastic sound cues, creepy atmosphere, and terrifying chase sequences. Plus, how's a human protagonist gonna take it down? A lot of these take cues from the indie survival horror games of the past decade. Often set in a poorly lit location, the main character must find their way to an objective while avoiding the cold embrace of a terrifying monster. One such game is Callum Fraser's Siren Head. The game has been described as a short and atmospheric retro PlayStation style first-person shooter. Although it's not very long, the game does a fantastic job of instilling fear in the player. The low poly style is gorgeous and adds to the tension. You take on the role of a park ranger looking for a missing hiker, and when you discover the grisly truth, Siren Head appears. The shambling, swaying Siren Head screams out random sound bites and siren noises as it chases you through the woods. This is one of the best representations of Siren Head that I've seen to date. If you're interested in playing this one though, follow the link down below. Siren Head mods have also been made for open world games like Gmod, Minecraft, and Roblox. They all seem to follow a similar structure, with the telephone terror chasing you through the dark. As the iconic monster reaches a wider audience, I am sure that more terrifying stories will crop up. And finally, our number 1 scariest fact about Siren Head. There are multiple Siren Heads. Yep. You heard me right. Henderson has hinted in the past that there may be more than one of these terrors stalking through the pine groves at night. In an informational image uploaded to Twitter, Henderson wrote that multiple head configurations have been seen, but it was unknown whether that meant it could alter its appearance or if they were subspecies that existed. So if you thought you were safe, think again. These things could be anywhere. In addition to Henderson's clever little hint, there have been reports of sightings all over North America. It's also possible that they're adapting to hunt more humans. Some say that they have the ability to adapt to urban environments by mimicking lampposts and other structures. Imagine a pack of these things chasing a poor businessman down the street, arms outstretched. Personally, I welcome our new siren overlords. I just hope they play something good before devouring me. Starting off our list at number 5, there are no shortage of Siren Head stories. If you've got a Twitter account, you may be aware of the cult following Siren Head has amassed. All sorts of artists have joined in on the fun and rendered some especially terrifying manifestations of this beast. And while a picture is worth 1,000 words, what's a good creepy picture without an abstract story to help augment the scary potential? One story tells a tale of a couple on vacation doing what all normal couples do on vacation: scoping out graveyards. When I think dream date, I definitely default to cemetery visits. They recount seeing an old macabre telephone pole and assuming it was some weird art piece that no one had noticed yet. Thinking nothing of it, they snapped a pic and moved on. What was in that picture though? None other than our favorite tornado siren-headed beast. The pair was lucky to walk away scot-free. Another chilling tale involves a family of 4 disappearing from their suburban home. No signs of break-in or violence, they just up and disappeared. Neighbors reported the disappearance when they noticed that the back sliding door was left open. Someone, it's unknown whether the photographer was police or news or a curious onlooker, snapped a picture of the empty backyard, and there seems to be an oddly grotesque telephone pole just outside the back corner of the yard. Has anyone seen Lake Mungo? It's like that kind of vibe. There are plenty more stories where these came from, with pictures and short videos to match, but I'll let you do some exploring on your own, you know, if you're brave enough. Coming in at number 4. There are other monsters, and not just other siren heads. If you know Trevor Henderson, you know he has a whole swath of oogie boogie stuff waiting to steal your soul or scare you half to death. They creep around in every conceivable corner and have all sorts of different reasons and methods behind their scaring. One in particular might actually be the inverse to Siren Head, you know, the good side of the coin. This creature is known as the Long Horse, and while looking very creepy, does not pose the same kind of threat as Siren Head. First of all, this beast is deathly quiet. No noise. So we're already on track to being the anti-Siren Head. Longhorse is non-hostile, and appearances of this opposable noodle are usually a warning of impending disaster. He means well, so take his warnings and be safe. Its appearance is, well, I mean, a little unnerving though. Nobody has ever seen the rear end of this fella. Nope. Always just the long neck. This body part can bend like a finger and make new joints at will, and sometimes these joints will crackle, but that's it for sounds coming from the Long Horse. Plus, it doesn't have to appear in just one long piece. Nope, it can break the rules of linear space and just extend itself wherever it may please. Its waxy skin probably has something to do with this physical and spatial flexibility. The best part about it? It smells like cinnamon. How comforting is that? Despite being creepy as frick, he wants to keep us safe and calm. It's doubtful that Sirenhead and Longhorse are actually at odds, but they do exist in the same universe, and they may cross paths at some point in the future. Any thoughts on what happens then? Filling out our number 3 spot, you could catch a Sirenhead. So these are not godlike creatures, people. We've discussed folks worshipping Sirenhead in the past, but if you come for it with enough technology and foresight, you could likely bag and tag one. I have no idea why anyone in their right mind would ever attempt this, but let's just do a quick thought exercise about this. Consider the Sirenhead's physical form. It's tall, strong, sirens on its head, it can camouflage in the woods, it moves pretty fast. Armored vehicles would be nice for the safety factor, but they're not going to cut it in the woods. I'm thinking that it would be best to head in during the day after a recent sighting. Hearing protection is a must for this operation. You know, because of the sirens. In terms of actually incapacitating it, my best guess is that the AT-AT method would work. You know, using drones or maybe some harpoons with ropes attached, somebody could tangle up these lanky limbs in a bundle and drop Sirenhead to the forest floor. It only has 2 legs, so making it trip would be pretty easy too. We need some really high tensile carbon rope or something, you know, you can't have it breaking through those restraints. But once it's down, there's no telling what it'll do. Maybe it'll send out a distress signal alerting other Sirenheads to human presence. Usually Sirenheads stick to a lone wolf type operation, but I'd be ready to take on an extra few just in case. It's a total crapshoot whether tranquilizers or other sedatives would work too, because we really have no idea how the physiology of these things works. Would drugs even do anything? The skin that it has doesn't look like there's much blood flowing underneath. Eventually, I'm sure somebody would be able to capture one and bring it into captivity, but who knows what we could discover then. Maybe there are some secrets we shouldn't be trying to reveal. Coming in at number 2, the real reason that sirens are scary. We all know Sirenhead's signature noise by now, right? It's in the name. It's a siren. Nowadays, sirens are mostly used to warn civilians of impending severe weather. Depending on location, this could mean tornadoes, thunderstorms with high winds, or even hail larger than golf balls. These sirens should always have the same tone, more or less, regardless of location. They're so loud and disconcerting because they were developed to take advantage of a decibel level that people are sensitive to, around 400 to 600 Hz at decibel levels exceeding 130. Sirens like this were developed during the Cold War to warn people of something very bad happening, and they totally elicit that response. You know, that noise, the siren, it just opens up a pit of dread in your stomach, right? But how did Sirenhead learn to do this? How did they develop a trait? A sound that causes visceral reactions in humans specifically? Maybe don't think too hard about that one, you might not be happy with the answer you come up with. The fact that it can imitate these sounds is bad news for us though. People familiar with siren procedure know that hearing one means seek shelter, tune into the local media for more information. Calling the authorities is actually discouraged in situations like this because they don't want the emergency lines being flooded. So basically, Sirenhead is using the siren to encourage humans to stay in one place, turn on a radio, and not reach out for help. That tricky bastard. And if a Sirenhead is close enough to you and lets loose a 135 decibel blast, you could find yourself reeling from the noise. It'd be like a stun grenade hammering your eardrums. Tinnitus, anyone? If you live in a place that employs emergency sirens, make sure you know when they do their tests. And if you ever hear a siren outside of a test time, you'll know something's up. Tune into the radio, and if nobody's reporting on nasty weather, then I'd get the hell out of Dodge. In the meantime, do your best Sirenhead impression in the comments. I want to hear that, or read it. And finally at number 1, Sirenheads are ancient. I bet you didn't see this one coming. It's true. There have been cave paintings found depicting creatures very similar to Sirenhead. Kinda looks like a buffalo hunt, but instead of buffalo, there's Sirenhead. We have little stick people throwing their spears and firing arrows at the monstrously tall creature. The painting even depicts noise streaming from the sirens. The oldest cave paintings currently predate 28,000 years ago, while some of the newest ones were made less than a century ago. But what does this actually mean? Well, I mean, we can't be sure because there's no confirmed date for the painting of Sirenhead, but this does mean that it's been around for ages. How old could they possibly be? Have the same ones been alive for generations, or are they capable of producing offspring? The thing that bothers me most though is the fact that their sirens look pretty much exactly the same as they do now in these ancient paintings. How were they able to mimic sirens before sirens existed? Are they capable of time travel? Can they see the future? Or did something with immense power and knowledge create this monster? I guess that's part of why it's such an effectively scary creature. It's just a whole bunch of unsolved mysteries. We fear what we don't understand, and at this point, we have no idea what Sirenhead's deal is. Coming in at number 5, it kills in unexpected ways. Most monsters have a signature kill move, right? They'll eat people, or tear them limb from limb, or suck the soul right out of their body. But Sirenhead? Sirenhead is different. We've seen it shambling off in the distance plenty, but to see it actually attack someone is quite rare. Getting the moment of death on camera is even less common. So how does Sirenhead kill? We won't even begin with the why, because who can say why a monster acts like a monster? Plus, it seems to hunt for fun, which is something nobody wants to think about. While it is hard to catch Sirenhead in the act of killing, we can take a look at the messes it leaves behind for some clues. All sorts of different bodies have been discovered over time with plenty of odd outcomes. One famous finding had a victim placed way up in the higher branches of a tree. At first it appeared they had climbed up there to hide, and they were clutching onto the branch for dear life. However, when rescue crews got up and took a closer look, a different story presented itself. The individual up there had been placed there and had something wrong with their head. Their eyes, eardrums, and other assorted soft tissue had been totally blown out, almost as if there was a sound that was simply too loud for the human body to handle. It's not too far of a stretch to say that Sirenhead uses sonic weapons when hunting folks down. Like, one would assume that it would pick up someone and tear him apart based on its gigantic physiology and all, but the sound-based violence is another terrifying possibility. This happened again when a larger, more imposing version of Sirenhead made its way through a suburban neighborhood. It entered no homes, but all sorts of people around were found dead with similar soft tissue trauma. Now, this isn't to say that Sirenhead only kills with sound. It has been seen being more directly, physically violent. It's not even mentioning the weird tooth-filled mouth found inside its sirens. So yeah, Sirenhead can kill you in all sorts of different ways, and there isn't all that much you can do about it. Isn't that fun to think about? Coming in at number 4, we've got most Sirenhead games are bootlegs. You heard it here first, folks. If you find a Sirenhead game on the Play Store or maybe come across a crazy itch.io experience, you're probably looking at an unofficial, unvenerated recreation of Sirenhead. You've kind of got to expect that at this point. We're in the age of infinite content online, and people are happy to make whatever will please the masses. Sometimes there's a genuine love for the horror creature behind the scenes, and sometimes it's a quick cash-in by someone who knows how to work with 3D models. When the Sirenhead boom began way back when, the first really popular game to feature the lanky lad was the PS1-style Modus Interactive number. It came out all the way back in October 2018 and was a submission to a Halloween-themed game jam. It's hard to believe that Sirenhead's been around that long, eh? The folks behind this game got Trevor Henderson's blessing and didn't charge people any money to play it. Since then, things have got a little muddy. It seems that a brand new, and by brand new I mean thinly veiled ripoff, another popular game, Sirenhead game, pops up every week, often attached to sketchy promises of commercial releases. In fact, there's a whole subset of Sirenhead bootleg drama that I don't feel like getting into today. Needless to say, unless Trevor himself is endorsing a Sirenhead game, you can probably consider it a shameless cash-in. The irony of saying that is not lost on me, folks, don't you worry. And don't get me started on the Sirenhead mods for Minecraft and Roblox. I mean, some do present a base resemblance of the iconic horror creature, but others are just kind of lame. Let's leave it at that. Coming in at number 3, we've got Sirenhead could kick Slenderman's butt. Controversial, I know, but you can't just bring up one without comparing it to the other these days. They're both tall, they're both creepy, they're both found in the woods, they're both born from the chaotic internet mythos of horror. But Sirenhead is the newest iteration, and it's been rebuilt faster, better, stronger. And while Slenderman probably had a more organic rise to fame, with a few more extremely creepy web series relying less on jump scares and oversaturation, Sirenhead is the apex predator here. Maybe they could live together in some sort of symbiotic harmony, but if the latter of the two decided that it wanted to go solo, there'd be no questioning the victor. Slenderman does a pretty good job of stalking folks and making them paranoid, for sure. He can cause descent into madness like no other and tends to amass a mindless following with ease. However, these kinds of things are mostly dangerous to humans. Sirenhead, on the other hand, is an absolute unit. Tall as a telephone pole, covered in hardened skin stuff, and able to bust people's soft tissue no problem, it would handily win any fight against any pale, tall person. Plus, there may or may not be many different Sirenheads out there, so there's a numbers game to consider as well. You can argue for hours over who's scarier and what the cooler creature truly is, but you can't deny the true supernatural power that Sirenhead holds. I doubt Slenderman could even phase the loud lad. Coming in at number 2, we've got Sirenhead is not an SCP. You may have heard this before, but it bears repeating. Sirenhead is not an SCP. Sirenhead is a copyrighted creature made by Trevor Henderson. However, it's been closely associated with the SCP Foundation, I suppose because they're both creepy and therefore has a lot of folks convinced that it is indeed an anomaly. Despite numerous efforts by those who know better, the Sirenhead SCP Brigade continues to staunchly believe that it is an SCP, and if it's not an SCP, then someday it will be. Again, I must dissuade you of these illusions. Sirenhead is its own creature, entirely separate from the collaborative writing community that makes up the SCP universe. Now some of you might be thinking, hey, what if someone decided to write up a Sirenhead SCP entry and it got vetted as an official SCP anomaly? And to that I say, I guess. But in the end, it's extremely unlikely that the scenario would happen. So don't think too much about that one. And finally at number 1, we've got Sirenhead is heading into cities. That's right. Way back in the far-off year of 2018, Sirenhead had made waves, and by waves I mean noises in the woods. That's where you could find this fascinating creature. It was forest-based through and through, eating hikers, confusing campers, and luring children away from their rural homes. That's where it seemed scariest. It could blend in with the trees, as most folks would likely just mistake its body for another tree trunk. Plus, it's unlikely that anyone would look up and see the sirens. Add in its unearthly ability to stay still for extended periods of time, and you've got a forest predator extraordinaire. However, it can't just stay there forever, now can it? Soon enough, folks would feel a little too safe in their suburban homes and urban apartments. Sirenhead would have to hoof it to somewhere new. A lot of art, especially that coming from the official source, now depicts Sirenhead taking on new forms and venturing into the suburbs and urbs. It might take the form of a telephone pole or a streetlight or any other piece of common infrastructure. One might think that it would be easy to pick out a monster like that in the city because it has nowhere to hide. But to that, Sirenhead asks when the last time you really looked up to the top of a streetlight was. Urban camouflage taking advantage of our daily complacency. Now that's scary. Are your ears perked up, straining to catch the slightest echo of a siren now? Yeah, me too.